The bathroom door slammed open, and my heart stopped. Steam swirled around us, but it couldn't hide the truth from my father's piercing gaze. Me, frozen, with Julian's arms around me. In that split second, I knew our lives would never be the same. I was 25, living in a cramped Brooklyn apartment with my dad, Marcus, a stoic mechanic who'd raised me alone since Mom left when I was 6. His hands were calloused, his heart guarded, and his rules were ironclad. No secrets, no shame. I'd broken both. My name's Ethan Carter, a black graphic designer scraping by on freelance gigs, and Julian Rivera, my best friend since college, was the secret I'd kept buried deep. He was 24, a Latino barista with a laugh that could light up the darkest corners of my world, and eyes that saw through every wall I'd built. That morning in June, New York was suffocating under a heat wave. Our ancient AC unit had died, and Dad was at the shop, or so I thought. Julian had crashed at our place after a late-night movie marathon, and we'd ended up in the shower, laughing over some dumb joke about soapsuds. His hands brushed my shoulders, and suddenly, we weren't laughing anymore. The water cascaded over us, and for the first time, I let myself feel what I denied for years. Our lips met, tentative, then urgent, and the world outside that tiny bathroom vanished. Then the door flew open. Dad stood there, his oil-stained work shirt clinging to his frame, his face a mask of shock and something darker, betrayal. "Ethan, what the hell is this?" His voice was low, dangerous, like the rumble of a storm about to break. I stumbled back, water dripping onto the tiles, my voice caught in my throat. Julian grabbed a towel, his face pale, but he didn't look away. "Mr. Carter, he started, but Dad cut him off. "Get out. Both of you get dressed and get out here. Now." He turned and slammed the door behind him. We scrambled into clothes, my hands shaking. Julian whispered, "It's gonna be okay, Ethan." But his eyes were wide with fear. I wanted to believe him, but I knew my dad. He wasn't just angry, he was wounded. I'd seen that look when Mom left, when he found out she'd been cheating. Now I was the one breaking his trust. In the living room, Dad sat on the worn couch, his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. The silence was heavier than the humidity. Julian stood by the door, ready to bolt, but I couldn't move. I'd spent years dodging this moment, pretending I was the son Dad wanted, strong, straight, uncomplicated. Now the truth was out, and it felt like a blade. "Dad, I'm sorry," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." He looked up, his eyes hard. "Find out? Ethan, you think I'm stupid? You think I didn't see the way you two look at each other? I just didn't want to believe it." He stood, pacing. "This ain't right. Not in my house." Julian stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension. "Mr. Carter, I love your son. I'm not ashamed of that, and neither should he be." Dad's jaw clenched. "You don't get to tell me how to feel about my own kid. You're his friend, Julian. His friend. How long you been lying to me?" "It's not a lie," I snapped, finding my voice. "It's who I am. I've been hiding it because I knew you'd react like this." The room went quiet again. Dad's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, I saw the man who'd stayed up nights fixing my bike, who'd cheered at my art school exhibitions even when he didn't understand my work. But then he pointed at the door. "I need time, Ethan. I can't look at you right now." My chest tightened. I grabbed my jacket, and Julian followed me out into the sticky Brooklyn night. We walked aimlessly, the city's pulse loud around us. Car horns, distant laughter, the hum of life. Julian reached for my hand, but I pulled away. What if he never comes around? I asked, my voice breaking. He will, Julian said, his eyes fierce. He loves you. He's just scared. I wanted to believe him, but the weight of Dad's words pressed down on me. We ended up at a 24-hour diner on Flatbush Avenue, nursing coffee and silence. Julian's hand rested on the table, close to mine, but I couldn't bridge the gap. Not yet. The next few days were a blur. I crashed at Julian's tiny studio in Queens, a place cluttered with art supplies and half-finished poems. He worked shifts at the coffee shop while I tried to focus on my freelance projects, but my mind kept replaying Dad's face. I texted him once, a simple, "Can we talk?" He didn't reply. Julian was patient, but I could see the strain in his eyes. He'd grown up in a loud, loving Puerto Rican family who'd embraced his bisexuality with open arms. He didn't understand why I couldn't just walk away from Dad's judgment. "He's your family." "Sure," Julian said one night, stirring a pot of arroz con pollo. "But you're allowed to live your truth, Ethan. You don't owe him your happiness." "It's not that simple," I said, staring out the window at the neon lights of Queens Boulevard. "He's all I've got. He worked double shifts to pay for my art classes. He deserves better than me sneaking around." Julian set the spoon down and crossed the room to me. "He deserves a son who's honest with himself. And you deserve to be loved without hiding." His words hit hard, but they didn't erase the ache. I loved Julian. God, I loved him. But the thought of losing Dad was like losing a piece of myself. I started avoiding Julian's touch, not because I didn't want it, but because every kiss felt like a step further from the life I'd known. A week later, I got a call from my cousin, Aisha, who worked at Dad's auto shop. "Ethan, you need to come home," she said, her voice tight. "Your dad's not okay." I caught the subway back to Brooklyn, my stomach in knots. Aisha met me at the shop, her braids pulled back, her face grim. "He's been drinking," she said. "Not at work, but at night. He's not talking to anyone, not even me." I found Dad in the back office, surrounded by invoices and empty coffee cups. He looked older, his eyes red-rimmed. "Ethan," he said, barely glancing up. "What do you want?" "I want to fix this," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm still your son. That hasn't changed." He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "You think I don't want to understand? I do. But it's not what I raised you to be." His words cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to scream that I didn't choose this, that I'd spent years hating myself for it, but all I could say was, "I'm trying to be honest. Can you at least try to listen?" He didn't answer, and I left before I could say something I'd regret. Back at Julian's, I broke down, the weight of it all crashing over me. Julian held me, his arms steady, but I could feel the distance growing between us. He was fighting for us, but I was stuck, torn between the man I loved and the father I couldn't lose. Weeks turned into a month, and Dad's silence became a wall I couldn't climb. I moved back to the apartment, sleeping on the couch while Dad stayed in his room. We were strangers in our own home, passing each other like ghosts. Julian kept texting, but I pushed him away, too raw to face the love I wasn't sure I deserved. One night, I found a letter on the kitchen counter, written in Dad's jagged handwriting. "Ethan," it read, "I'm trying. I don't understand, but I'm trying. Come to the shop tomorrow." Hope flickered, fragile but real. The next day, I walked into the auto shop, the smell of oil and metal grounding me. Dad was under a car, wrench in hand. He slid out when he saw me, wiping his hands on a rag. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a stool. He didn't look at me as he spoke. I talked to Father James at church. He said some things about love, about God not making mistakes. I don't know if I believe it, but I know I don't want to lose you. I swallowed hard. Dad, I'm not asking you to change overnight. I just need you to see me. He nodded, slow, like it hurt. I see you, Ethan. I just need time. It wasn't a hug or a tearful reconciliation, but it was a start. I left the shop feeling lighter, like I could breathe again. I texted Julian, asking him to meet me at our favorite rooftop garden in Manhattan. I needed to see him to fix what I'd been breaking. When I got there, Julian was waiting, his curls catching the late afternoon light. He looked wary, like he was bracing for another fight. "Ethan, what's going on?" he asked. "I'm sorry," I said, stepping closer. "I've been scared, and I've been pushing you away. But I love you, Julian. I want us." His eyes softened, and he reached for my hand. This time I didn't pull away. We stood there, the city sprawling below us, and for the first time in weeks, I felt whole. Rebuilding with Dad was slow, like piecing together a shattered vase. We started small dinners where we talked about work, the weather, anything but the truth hanging between us. But Julian was patient, showing up for Sunday breakfasts, charming Dad with stories about his family's Puerto Rican traditions. Dad didn't say much, but he listened, and that was enough for now. Meanwhile, Julian and I were finding our rhythm. We spent evenings sketching together. Me on my tablet, him with his pencils, creating a world where we didn't have to hide. But the city wasn't always kind. We got stares on the subway, heard slurs whispered behind us. Once, a guy at Julian's coffee shop spat in his cup when he saw us holding hands. Julian laughed it off, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. One night, we went to a queer open mic in the East Village, a place where we could just be. Julian read a poem he'd written about us, his voice steady and raw. "In your eyes, I found a home/in your hands. I found my truth." The room erupted in applause, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd spent so long hiding, but here, with Julian, I was seen. Back at the apartment, Dad was waiting up, a rare thing. He looked at us, his expression unreadable. "You two are happy," he said, almost like a question. "We are," I said, holding Julian's hand. Dad nodded, then handed me an old photo album. "Found this in the attic. Thought you might want it." Inside were pictures of me as a kid, drawing, laughing, living. On the last page, a note from Mom. "Ethan, be whoever you are. I'll always love you." I hadn't known she'd left that behind. Dad's eyes were soft as he said, "She'd be proud of you." I'm trying to be. By fall, things were different. Dad started asking Julian about his art, even hung one of his sketches in the shop. We weren't perfect, but we were family, and that was enough. Julian and I moved into a tiny apartment together, our walls covered in art, our lives tangled in the best way. One evening, we hosted a dinner for Dad and Aisha. Julian cooked, filling the air with the scent of mofongo and roasted peppers. Dad laughed, actually laughed, when Julian teased him about his ancient flip phone. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside. "I was wrong," he said, his voice low. "I thought I was protecting you, but I was holding you back. I'm proud of you, Ethan. And Julian, he's good for you." I hugged him, something we hadn't done in years. "Thanks, Dad." That night, Julian and I stood on our balcony, the city lights stretching out like a promise. "We made it," he whispered, his breath warm against my cheek. "Yeah," I said, pulling him close. "We did." The journey hadn't been easy. There were scars, moments of doubt, and battles we'd fought to be here. But in that moment, with Julian's hand in mine and my dad's love behind me, I knew we'd changed everything. Not just for us, but for the family we were building, one honest step at a time.